Because you know when there is a child who wants to belong, who wants to be seen as a person, who wants to be treated with respect. This is a story about such a child. Canon Curry is 13 years old. He is the son of Stephen Curry, one of the greatest basketball players in the world. But this does not make Canon who he is. Canon is a child who simply wants to be a child. You can tell when there is a young person who is discovering the world. One day, Canon is in an electronics store, an elegant place where expensive technology is sold. Gold headphones, limited edition video games, premium electronics. Canon is accompanied or alone, it does not matter, because this story is about him. You can tell when there is a moment that changes a life. Canon approaches the counter. He sees a product that interests him. Not because it is expensive. It is because he really wants it. He approaches the salesperson, a man between 40 and 50 years old, who has worked there for some time, who knows every potential customer by their look. "Hello, I have a question about this product," says Canon. Kind, respectful, polite. You can tell when there is a child who has manners. The salesperson turns. He sees Canon. He sees a young boy, ordinary appearance, nothing special. And on his face there is a decision that is quick. "Oh yes, well, this product is very expensive for your range." He does not say for you, he says for your range. As if he knew exactly who Canon is. As if he could see in the clothes, in the hair, in the appearance, that Canon is not a customer who can pay. You can tell when there is judgment that is immediate. "But I have money," Canon says timidly, because he is a child who is being judged, because he feels the shift in energy, because he understands, without it being said out loud, you are not welcome here. You can tell when there is truth that is clear. The salesperson smiles, but it is not a smile of kindness. It is a smile of condescension. Young man customers who really can pay for this, they usually, look different. He does not say are rich. He does not say have status. He says look different. And this is clearly an insult. You can tell when there is contempt that is veiled. Canon feels diminished. He feels how his body becomes smaller, as if he had physically shrunk, because he was rejected not for who he is, but for who the salesperson thinks he is. You can tell when there is a child who feels injustice. "I understand," Canon says quietly. He turns to leave, but before that, the salesperson says, "If you want, we have more affordable options for young people like you." Young people like you, as if there were a category that Canon belonged to, a category of young people who cannot pay, a category of not enough, a category of rejected. You can tell when there is truth that is named without being spoken. Canon leaves. The store stays behind, but the store does not leave Canon. You can tell when there is an experience that changes a person. Later, in the car, Stephen picks up Canon, as a father does. Stephen sees the expression on Canon's face. He sees something silent. He sees pain that is quiet. "How was your afternoon?" Stephen asks. Canon could lie. He could say, "Fine, everything good." He could let it pass, but the truth comes out, because Canon trusts his father. "Dad, I was rejected at the store." Stephen feels his own anger rising, but first he wants to listen. He wants to understand. He wants to know exactly what happened. You can tell when there is a father who is present. Canon tells everything. The salesperson, the judgment, the rejection, the condescension, the way he was treated as less. Stephen listens. He does not interrupt. He does not offer a quick solution. He simply listens to his son. You can tell when there is presence that is sacred. Dad, I felt small, Canon says. That is all. This is the confession that matters. Small. Because he was made to feel insignificant, because he was judged, because he was rejected, because the world said without words, you are not worth it. You can tell when there is a child who has named the truth. Stephen places his hand on Canon's shoulder. He does not offer excuses. He does not offer, I will fix this. He offers, I heard you. You can tell when there is a father who understands. The drive home is silent, but it is not uncomfortable silence. It is silence of processing, of a father understanding that his son just experienced injustice, of a child understanding that the world is not always fair, of both understanding. This needs to be discussed. It needs to be processed. It needs to be turned into a lesson. You can tell when there is a moment that is a turning point. Night at home. After the scene at the store. Stephen sits with Canon. Not on the couch with the television on, but in a place where they can look at each other, where conversation is sacred. You can tell when there is a father who creates space for dialogue. Canon, let's talk about what happened, not as an accusation, as an invitation, as your father wants to understand. Canon takes a deep breath. Dad, I do not want to bother you with this, because you have important things. And there it is. There is already what the salesperson planted, the idea that Canon is less important, that his feelings do not matter, that he should be small so as not to bother. You can tell when there is a child who has internalized rejection. Canon, listen to me, Stephen says. Nothing is more important than you. Nothing. This is not courtesy. This is truth. You can tell when there is a father who names the truth. When that salesperson rejected you, he did not reject a product. He rejected you. And I want you to understand, his rejection had nothing to do with you. Canon looks confused. It had to do with who he thinks you are. You can tell when there is a father who distinguishes truth. Dad, but he seemed so right. He works there. He knows what? Stephen asks. He knows nothing about you? He knows appearance. He knows age. He knows nothing about who you really are. You can tell when there is a father who defends. Stephen continues. Canon, the world will try to make you feel small. The world will judge you based on appearance. The world will assume who you are before getting to know you. This will happen many times in your life. You can tell when there is truth, that is preparation. What do I do then? Canon asks in a small voice. How do I avoid feeling small? Stephen smiles, but it is not a smile of an easy solution. It is the smile of a father who knows a hard truth. You do not avoid feeling small. Feeling small is natural when the world treats you as lesser. But here is what you can do. You can tell when there is a father who is honest. You can know in your heart that your dignity does not come from that salesperson. Your dignity does not come from who believes in you. Your dignity does not come from money, from appearance, from status. Your dignity comes from you. You can tell when there is truth that is fundamental. Canon remains silent, processing, because this is a new concept, that he can be worthy without the world's approval, that his value is intrinsic, not extrinsic. You can tell when there is a child who discovers truth. Dad, how do you know that you are worthy? The perfect question, the question that matters.
Stephen breathes, because I decided. Because in every moment the world tries to make me feel less, I choose to believe in myself. And this is hard, Canon. This is not easy. But it is possible. You can tell when there is a father who is vulnerable. So you are telling me that I should just ignore the salesperson? Not ignore, Stephen says. Remember. Remember that he was wrong. Remember that your dignity is intact. Remember that you did not change just because
someone disrespected you. You can tell when there is a lesson that is deep. Dad, I am afraid. Afraid of what? Of going back there. Of being rejected again. Stephen places his hand on Canon's shoulder. Then we learn how to be strong after rejection. Because that is the greatest strength that exists. It is not being rejected. It is being rejected and still knowing that you matter. You can tell when there is a lesson that is for life. Do you want to go back there? Stephen
asks. Canon hesitates. But slowly he nods. Yes, I do. But I want you to be with me. I will always be, Stephen says, not to save you, but to witness your strength. You can tell when there is a father who understands his role. Nights pass. Canon thinks about what his father said. Your dignity comes from you. It echoes in his mind because it is a truth no one had told him before, because it is a truth that changes everything. You can tell when there is an idea that transforms a
person. Canon begins to understand that the salesperson was wrong, that the world was wrong, that he is not lesser, that his rejection does not diminish his value. You can tell when there is a child who finds strength a week later. Canon is different, not because he will defeat the salesperson, but because he understood something about himself, that he is stronger than he knew. You can tell when there is a young person who has found power. Stephen and Canon arrive at the same place. The electronics store, the place that rejected Canon. The atmosphere is different now. Canon feels power, not the power of celebrity, personal power. You can tell when there is a person who occupies space. Before entering, Stephen says, "Remember what we talked about?" Canon nods. "Your dignity is yours. No one can take it. Are you ready?" Canon takes a deep breath. "I am." You can tell when there is a child who is grounded. They enter. The store is the same, but Canon is different. He walks straight ahead, with his head held high, not with arrogance, with dignity. The salesperson is at the counter. He turns when he sees Canon enter. He recognizes him, but he does not recognize the change. He still sees him as the child who cannot pay. You can tell when there is a person who is living in the past. Canon approaches, slowly, intentionally, like a man, not like a child. "Hello," Canon says. His voice is different, clearer, stronger, more present. The salesperson feels uncomfortable because he senses the change. "Young man, good afternoon. How can I help you?" Now he is polite, because he recognizes that Canon has something, some presence he did not have before. You can tell when there is a person who changed frequency. "Do you remember me?" Canon asks. The salesperson hesitates. I think so. Last week I came here. I asked about a product, and you told me I could not pay." You can tell when there is a child who names the truth. The salesperson becomes uncomfortable. "Oh, well, I did not mean to be rude." "But you were," Canon says calmly. "You judged who I am based on appearance, and you treated me as if I were less." You can tell when there is a young person who is articulate. The staff begins to pay attention because they see a child confronting the manager, but not with anger, with honesty. "What do you want me to do?" the salesperson asks. Canon answers, "I want you to know that you were wrong, not because I am the son of Stephen Curry, but because I am a person who deserves respect, and my value does not come from money, nor from who my father is. My value is mine." You can tell when there is a child who knows his own value. Stephen stands beside him, watching, witnessing, not interfering, allowing Canon to be the protagonist, internally celebrating his son's strength. You can tell when there is a father who understands his role. "Canon, I am sorry," the salesperson says, but Canon is not looking for any apology. It is not about apology. It is about you understanding that your assumptions were wrong. I came looking for help, and you made me feel small. Never do this again to another child. You can tell when there is a young person who is wise. The salesperson is shaken, understanding many things. That he judged wrongly, that he hurt an innocent person, that he was confronted with respect. "You are right," the salesperson says. "I sincerely apologize." Canon nods. "Thank you." He turns to leave. "But before that, I hope you think differently about the next person who walks in here." You can tell when there is a child who teaches an adult. Canon walks to the door, with his head held high, with dignity that is visible. The staff watches him leave. Stephen follows him, not as a protector, as a father who is proud. You can tell when there is a moment that is historic. On the street afterward, Canon feels. He does not feel big. He feels aligned. He feels as if his inner strength and outer action are in harmony. He feels as if he reclaimed space, not to punish the salesperson, but to affirm truth. You can tell when there is a child who is whole. Stephen places his arm around Canon. "I am very proud of you, not because you confronted the salesperson, but because you kept your dignity." Canon smiles. "I learned from the best teacher." You can tell when there is paternal legacy that is real. After the confrontation, the world begins to respond. Someone recorded a video of Canon in the store. A video of a child confronting a salesperson with respect. A video of a father who witnesses instead of fixing. A video of dignity being reclaimed. A video of strength being modeled. You can tell when there is a moment that resonates. The video circulates, not because it involves Stephen Curry, but because it involves a child who found dignity. Canon Curry, Stands Tall begins trending because the world sees something rare. A child who knows his value, a father who teaches instead of saving. You can tell when there is a narrative that is necessary. Other young people begin to share. "I felt like Canon. I was rejected like that. But now I know my value does not come from approval." Because Canon opened a door. Because Canon showed how it is done. You can tell when there is action that triggers a movement. For you who are a father or mother. For you who see your child being rejected. For you who want to protect but know you cannot. For you who want to teach instead of solve, Canon and Stephen offer a model. It is not about fighting your child's battle. It is about teaching how your child fights their own battle. You can tell when there is parenthood that is wise. Weeks later, Canon is different. Not because he confronted the salesperson, but because he learned truth about himself, that his dignity is his, that the world cannot take it, that value comes from within, not from outside. You can tell when there is a child who is grounded, At school, when another student treats him with disrespect, Canon does not fight. Canon does not lower himself. Canon simply walks away because he knows another student's opinion does not define him. You can tell when there is a young person who has peace. Friends ask, "How are you so confident?" Canon answers, "My father taught me that my value comes from me, not from who approves, not from who validates, from me." You can tell when there is a child who transmits truth. For you, over 50 years, old who are a parent or grandparent. For you, who raised a child based on protection. For you, who want to give your child a chance at true strength. Canon offers a lesson. The greatest strength you can give your child is not protection from rejection. It is a tool to deal with rejection. It is not saving your child from a difficult world. It is teaching your child how to live in a difficult world. It is witnessing your child's strength. It is celebrating your child's growth. You can tell when there is a lesson that is for parents. The store's salesperson, he changes his policy. He trains the staff about not making assumptions, about treating every person as a person, because he was confronted with respect, because he saw dignity in the child he rejected, because he understood he was wrong. You can tell when there is transformation that is genuine. Stephen often speaks about this in interviews. What Canon did in the store was greater than anything I did in basketball, because he found strength within himself. Not strength borrowed from a famous father, but personal strength. That is what matters. You can tell when there is a father who has clear priorities. 1 year later, Canon is a teenager who is different, not arrogant, not thinks he is better, just centered, because he knows his value, because he understood that the world may reject, but that does not change anything about him. You can tell when there is a young person who is free. Stephen sees the transformation, and he feels fulfillment, not because he fixed the problem, but because he taught his son how to fix it, because he witnessed strength that was there all along, because he celebrated when Canon reclaimed his power. You can tell when there is a father who fulfilled his role. For you, who are a parent over 50, for you, who want to give your child true strength, for you, who want to be a model, Canon offers an answer. The job of a parent is not to protect a child from all rejection. It is to teach a child how to be strong in rejection. It is not to solve your child's problems. It is to teach your child how to solve problems. It is not to make your child feel big. It is to teach your child that their greatness comes from within. You can tell when there is truth that is transformative. And so Canon's story is not about a store. It is not about a salesperson. It is not about a product. It is about a child who found dignity, a father who taught instead of solving, a world that saw and was changed. It is about strength that comes from within. It is about parenthood that is wise. It is about legacy that is real. You can tell when there is a story that teaches life. For you who see your child being rejected. For you who want to help but do not know how. For you who want to be a parent who matters. Watch Stephen. He did not save Canon. He witnessed Canon. He taught Canon. He celebrated Canon. This is parenthood. This is true love. This is the legacy that
matters. You can tell when there is truth that is final. End of the complete script.